So, what can we learn about a tea by observing the leaves?
Well, if the leaf is a big leaf, then it's going to be a mature leaf. And if it's a small leaf, then it's going to be like a bud and have a much lighter flavor. So, for example, like the Longjing, which is probably the most famous green tea in China, those are from relatively young leaves. Whereas most pu'er from Yunnan, these are from mature leaves, usually, like fairly mature. They have some that are made from younger leaves, but a lot of times these are made from relatively mature leaves, and so as a result, the Longjing has a very light flavor, whereas the Yunnan tea, the pu'er, has a much heavier flavor because of the age of the leaf when it was picked. And so when you look at the tea leaf, the dry leaf, a lot of times you can determine the age of the leaf when it was picked. Also, if you know about the tea, if you know something about how the leaf size should be, if you've had this tea before and you're used to it, then a lot of times you can tell when this tea was picked in sort of the growing cycle. So a lot of times the tea has several harvests, usually called flushes. So spring is usually the best, but sometimes they'll, if they're not too scrupulous, then they'll pick tea when it's past its prime, and the leaves will be too big. And if you look at the dry leaves and you know something about that, then you know that these leaves are kind of fishy looking because they look too big for that kind of tea. So you'll be alert to know that there might be something wrong with the tea, that it might be a bit too strong or have some sort of funny flavors, a bit too kind of acrid or tannic or something.
And what about the wet leaf?
What I was saying earlier about the size of the leaf and the quality of the leaf, sometimes you really can't tell that very clearly from the dried leaf. But when you look at the wet leaf, then it's totally unfolded, and you can get a better idea of what the shape of the leaf was and the size and maybe the maturity, the degree of oxidation. Some leaves during the oxidation process, they develop a particular some sort of characteristic. Some of them develop sort of funny white bumps on the leaf, so you can sort of recognize these sorts of characteristics if you drink the tea a lot. Yeah, so basically, it's just a way of identifying the tea and sort of learning more about it.
And what can you determine from the fragrance of a tea, either dry or wet leaf?
Well, that really depends on the tea. I mean, basically, when you smell the dry tea, first of all, it should have a smell. And that's some don't. And if it doesn't have a smell, then you know it's probably not going to be a very good tea. Also, it shouldn't smell sort of moldy or mildewed because a lot of people, they don't know how to store tea properly. And so, for example, they'll put tea in some sort of container that doesn't have a tight fit, and then they'll put it inside a cupboard or something. And if you live someplace really dry, like Arizona or something, it's probably not a big deal. But if you live someplace that has, some humidity, like in Seattle or something, then the tea will probably develop kind of a mildewy flavor or something like that. So if you smell it before you brew it, then yeah, you can detect if anything is off. But as far as the aroma of the dried leaves, it really depends on the tea. Some teas, they really don't smell like that much compared to the final flavor. It's pretty subtle. And other times it really hits you. So, it really just depends on the type of tea.